everyone, welcome back to the Cerberus Den. This past weekend has definitely been an emotional roller coaster of the highs of excitement of everyone getting to finally use their Shimmering Skies cards, to the 1 year anniversary of Disney Lorcana and what that's kind of meant for everyone, and excited for what the basic game brings to the future. But we also had kind of the bittersweet ending of the Cerberus Den physical store coming to an end as we kind of pivot more to being more of an online presence, a more community driven, traveling around to different shows and making content like this that hopefully people will enjoy, not just here in our local community but maybe everywhere in the world. So more about the second part later, but today what we want to talk about is how our event went. So this past weekend we had what was called a Den challenge. So what I thought was really cool early on when the challenges were coming out, the Lorcana challenge, was I wanted other people to have the opportunity to get to go. Now, obviously, there's all kinds of different reasons why people can't go. It could be expenses, it could be not being able to get time off work, and we really wanted the option for people to still get to participate in an event large scale, but specifically be able to get the cool fun promos everyone's been grinding to get and always talking about and coming back home with. So we've been very privileged to get to go to 2 of the challenges so far, and we've had some other players who've got to go to Texas as well. So we thought it would be a good idea to kind of spread the wealth, share it around everyone, and kind of give everyone the opportunity to earn some of those themselves. So me and my wife did a lot of grinding, specifically Chicago, and what we wanted to do was kind of basically host a tournament similar to if it was a Lorcana challenge, and we called it the Den Challenge. So the idea was the top 4 players were able to get a Rapunzel promo, the top 2 players were able to get a Rapunzel and Cinderella, and the top 3 players were able to get the Rapunzel, the Cinderella, and the Dragonfire. So everyone was very excited. Like I said, this is the first time everyone getting to use the new Shimmering Sky set. So there's been a lot of playtesting here lately at the store. Some people kind of doing stuff in secret with different tech options, stuff like that. But no matter which way you were leaning, everyone was still very excited and very, we'll say nervous of like, man, is this deck going to work? I haven't got to really use Pixelborn anymore. So it's been very much a hypothetical playtesting if you were not able to play at the store with us yet up to this point. So what I want to do is kind of go over the top 8 decks of how it went. And hopefully this gives some people some creative ideas, kind of see what some of our players did, what did work, what didn't work. Maybe that can help you make your decision for Toronto coming up here soon, or just anything come up like Set Champs coming up here in October. So let's switch over and look at the actual deck list we have so far. So for our top 8, there are definitely some familiar things that we have seen 100 times again and again. But what's interesting is without Bucky being prevalent and the adding of Shimmering Skies, there's definitely been some spicy tweaks to things that you would think would be very familiar, something like a Ruby Amethyst. Now, of course, so we're going to Ruby Amethyst here. We do have some of the classics everyone's very aware of. You're going to have your 1-drop to early that are going to get you your extra card draw, like your Broom and your Followers. Rafiki has made a comeback again, and I think a big part of that is definitely Daisy Duck. And she appears in a couple different deck lists, as anyone would imagine here when we go over them. But Rafiki helps. He's not going to take out Daisy, but that extra +3 attack you need in the very beginning of the game, some of these aggro decks can get pretty out of hand if you let them get that way. I would say we had probably 1/5 of our players playing the Amethyst Amber aggro deck, if anyone's seen different versions of that. We had 28 players for our event, so that was another kind of thing that was driving people's mindset of what they expected to see and not see. Going back to the deck list, you definitely have your Madam Man package, tried and true. This one's 1 Lumiere, which is a little interesting that Keef did that. That was a little fun and spicy. Once again, I think it's for that Daisy. I think it's to get through. So for example, something like Rafiki, you play Rafiki on 1, you play Lumiere on 2. Now Rafiki's actually hitting for 4, which is what is needed to take out Daisy Duck, and he keeps on going because he has 2 health. Some other things that are coming up that's helping once again with something like Daisy and those early protectors is Merlin Crab. This appears in, I would say, probably half of our top 8 deck lists, and we'll go over here in a little bit. Even in different color combinations, just because the extra 3 attack early game is very, very important to keep the aggro decks in check. Or just late game to take out something like a location. We have Sisu. Now this version actually does not run not Lumiere, but Flynn. Usually that is also a 2-drop option as well to kind of get that passive lore. You 2-drop Flynn, you 3-drop Sisu, and it's almost a guaranteed 3 lore unless they can take out one or the other immediately. This one I thought was very interesting, Magic of Dispel. So at our store, there is a lot of whole new world play. I'll say that. Whether it be blue steel or amber steel, or my deck that I'm running right now is Robin Hood, that also is running a whole new world. And I thought this was just a really funny one-of card that Keef was running, kind of in spite of all of us. And if anyone's not seen this card, basically, if it is your opponent's turn, you can't discard. So if someone does a whole new world, for example, he says discard your hand and draw 7. You're not discarding your hand. So if you hit 4 or 5 cards in your hand and it says discard your hand and draw 7, you're just drawing 7. So you can go to like 11, 12 cards really easily just by having something like her in play. And she's a 2/5. So if someone's doing the classic Shift Robin Hood or Shift Queen or Ariel very early, where it's like turn 3 or turn 4, they're getting that whole new world immediately. And Magicka's already in play. There's not much they can do about her. And if they do, it's kind of one of those like, oh, do I use that card on her? Is that really worth it? I guess I'll just let them have an extra 4 or 5 cards. So I thought that was pretty funny. Merlin Goat, Merlin Rabbit. A lot of deck lists are kind of going away from Merlin Rabbit, I've seen lately. Because there's lots of good card draw options now at this point. And like I mentioned before, with a lot of whole new world play, it's not nearly as needed as it was before to keep your hand full with something like Bucky when it was running around everywhere. Maui, obviously Maui's been good since set 1. He's going to take out almost anything in play, help take out locations. Lady Tremaine. This is not the only deck running Lady Tremaine in the top 8. Definitely making a comeback again. And I think that is because some of the new colors that are coming out are not necessarily going really, really wide. Your Amber Steel is, but even your Amber Amethyst is not going very wide. Maybe 1 or 2 characters before being able to take out. So I think it's very interesting that Tremaine's coming back, because people are getting that false sense of security when they're dropping their Mufasa, for example, blue Mufasa, and that's the only thing they have in play, and they're like, all right, your turn, and then they just Tremaine it. We haven't had to worry about that in a while, so a lot of people haven't been keeping it on their radar still. We'll see Madame Medusa, Sisu, once again to help kind of wipe, you ship that onto your other Sisu, that'll help take out the aggro. Brawl, same thing, that's going to help take out early aggro game. Friends on the other side, classic, we're seeing some songs, be prepared. Library is a new card that is in the set that I think appears in 4 of the top 8 decks we have. Very, very good card. There's so many different ways to play this. There's the similar play where you do Queen's Cast, where you just move your whole party there. Or what realistically is happening is you'll use it for something like Chernobog's Followers. You have Chernobog's Followers out, you pay 1, move it there, you quest, and then it says you may banish him to draw a card. Well, if he's at the library, you're going to draw 2 cards, which is pretty good. Or if you're going to challenge a character in something, you know it's going to go away. Like, for example, if you're going to use Merlin Crab to boost something up temporarily, and then you're going to run it in, you know it's going to be banished anyway, you might as well pay 1 and draw a card, essentially is what it says. Pay 1, draw a card. So, this is Keef's list. Like I said, kind of the classic we've seen, but with some new spicy stuff that he was in the top 8. Another top 8 list we have is Amethyst Steel. This is definitely very similar to the old school we've seen, not so much last set, but the set before with Jafar Wheel. This has definitely got some new things that's very similar though, and we've seen some other videos of other content creators where they're doing the Archimedes shift. So you turn 1 Archimedes, and then you can turn 3 shift Archimedes, and he costs 5 so he can see in a whole new world. Evasives being able to see in a whole new world is huge, because then that means they're safe. For the most part, if someone's going to, one way of being able to take care of your characters is by challenging. For the most part, they're not going to be able to handle it. And with 4 health, it gets around things like Strength of Raging Fire, Let Storm Rage On, or it'll get around something like a Baboon. Still keep on going, or even Smash for that matter. But then it's still got some of the classics. Like I said, you're going to Robin Hood, you're going to use Blue Fairy for the early draw with a lot of shifted characters in here. Pete. There's a handful of Petes also in this top 8 as well, so anyone who's not got to use Pete yet, Pete is definitely a timeout button for your opponent. If you are, once again, needing to feel safe of playing a character exerted and you're worried they're going to come take you out, or it's that turn 6 against a Ruby deck and you know turn 7 they're probably going to do Be Prepared. Pete kind of delays that 1 turn, and with a deck like this, which your Far Wheel, if anyone's got to play against it, that delayed 1 turn is all it took. You'll hear those players say all the time, like, oh my gosh, look, the top card of my deck was a whole new world. Or if I whole new worlded, I would have done the loop and done 2 more and got 21 lore. So it's very much that it gives you that one extra turn, and that is very, very important for a deck like Jafar Wheel. So everything else is kind of standard. If you've seen the list before, it's running the low-cost Steel Jafars. It's running Smee for early game to once it just help quest, but also take out early threats. And then it's running the Steel package of Along Came Zeus and Grab Your Sword to help take out characters in play. Another huge addition is Amethyst Chronicon. Whew. If you've not played with this card yet, it might be my favorite card of the new set. I think it is pretty broken. For pretty much every purple deck there is. Maybe not necessarily Ruby Amethyst, but the aggro deck, which is not in the top 8, by the way. Little spoiler alert. Amethyst Amber is not in the top 8. But this is exactly the card that aggro deck needed to keep its hand refill. And a deck like where you gain lore every time you draw a card with Jafar, I mean, that literally says tap, draw a card, gain 1 lore. And it doesn't cost anything additional. Very, very powerful. Now, of course, you're giving your opponent more cards, but if you're saying a whole new world, guess what? Those cards are going away. So you can care less if they had 6 cards or 15 cards in their hand because they're going to have a whole new hand anyway. Very, very fun deck. Kris definitely had fun with it. I believe he lost in the top 8 to a Amber Steel Song. Then we have Phil, who is running Sapphire Ruby. He's ran Sapphire Ruby also last set. I do know that because I played against him multiple times on the set championships. And his lists are definitely a little bit different. You start to play, when you play some of these decks like Ruby Amethyst, you start to definitely play around certain cards, like your Madame Medusas. Or because you always used to see, oh, Icebox is going to come out and then they're going to drop my power and do a Medusa. As you see this list, no Medusa. I don't think you ran Medusa last set either. So it really kind of messes with your mind when you definitely are playing the archetype for sure. Most of the cards are definitely cards you've seen multiple times. But he definitely makes some spicy little changes that mess with your head when you think one thing's coming and he hits you with another. So I definitely got to give Phil some credit for that. Some new cards. Tipo. Whew. Tipo is so good. Tipo fits in just about any blue deck there is. He, as a 2-drop, he's Fishbone Quill on a body. And, I mean, what more can I say? Anything that is on a body is pretty much immediately better. All that's Dragonfire on a body. That is Brawl on a body. That is, whatever it is, it's always usually better to have that extra character in play. Once again, to not only have to deal with aggro, but to use these characters to sing songs. So there's a lot of different options. Something like Tipo really, really gets the gas going in the beginning, because prior to this, your turn 2 ramp would have been something like 1 jump ahead, which is uninkable, right? Tipo's inkable. So late game, if you were to get, for example, 1 jump ahead, usually it's a pretty dead card. You don't need 1 extra ink when you already have 14 and you're just waiting to draw something like Tamatoa or be prepared for something to win the game. Whereas something like Tipo can actually be inked, or he's another body in play, which is important when someone is now playing, for example, Lady Tremaine. So Tipo, very, very good. Runs the little Sisu with the intent of, with the other Sisu, smaller Sisu, with the intent, of course, of shifting Sisu. Now, Phil in general is a huge dragon fan, so he's kind of tweaked his deck literally because of how much he loves dragons, which all the power to him. I appreciate that. For example, you see 4 Maleficent Dragon, which is usually not nearly as played anymore, but the man loves dragons, so I gotta give it to him. Another addition we have is Cusco. Cusco is very, very good now in with blue, and also necessarily blue steel, because he helps take care of items and locations. And then his second ability that gives resist can actually be used more than once a turn. So if you had a ton of excess ink at the end of your turn, you had nothing to spend, you could just pay 4, 8, 12 and give our characters resist 1, 2, 3. If you had something like a Codsworth in play, if it was blue steel, that's a lot of serious resist. So you can use that as an offensive tool to run into things, or you can use it to simply protect yourself. Another fun, interesting take he's running is Dragonfire. It's about as basic as it gets of a card, but you know what? It still works. And because he doesn't have as many uninkables as he used to, for example, with something like 1 jump ahead, you now have a little more flex in your deck to be able to handle a couple more uninkables, and pay 5, take care of any character in play no matter what's going on is pretty good. Items wise, running the Ice Block, running the Popsicles. Obviously, Ice Block does help with Sisu's, big Sisu shift, and then your Popsicle so it can get eaten by, of course, Hiram, to get that extra draw that you need later in the game. Okay. Next we have, and the top 8 is Reid. Reid's top 8 game was against Chad, Zycon, if you guys are familiar with his Twitch or him on X. So, I gotta pause for a second. Whenever we have hosted a tournament at the Star Wars Den, I have never put a timer on top 8. We have a lot of experienced players. It's extremely rare that a judge is even called because everyone just understands the rules and knows what's going on, which is very, very nice and relaxing. I don't have to worry about that. But also that means no one's taking a ton of time on their turns. Everyone's played their decks 100 times. There's never a need to set a timer for the top 8. But after this one, we probably would have had to. Their match lasted over 2 hours. 2 hours. This literally reminded me of set 1 Ruby Amethyst versus Ruby Amethyst, where it's just a knuckled freaking fight, and it's literally the person who's going to win is the person who doesn't deck out. There's constant board wipes resetting the game. There's a constant back and forth of challenging, taking everything out to where almost every turn the boards are clear on both sides because everyone was so worried about what the other person is going to do and not letting anything stay alive on the field. So very, very stressful. Very well watching them, and it was very, very intense the whole time. So imagine being very, very those intense moments you play in a Lorcana game where every decision you think you make is going to be the right one or the wrong one, and then do that for 2 hours straight. Yeah, it was pretty wild. We kept joking because we were playing all kinds of side games on the side. We probably had at least 5 or 6 games go on while their game was going on, while their match was happening. So, anyway, Reid, definitely one of our best players as well. That was in the top 8, who actually ended up losing to Chad, by the way. And it is, once again, some of the similar things we've seen with Ruby Amethyst from last set. You got your Turnboss followers, once again, Rafiki making a comeback again, definitely for the aggro decks. He is running the Flynn Sisu package to get that passive war in the beginning, kind of make someone deal with it. You got your Madam Mims. Madam Mim Elephant. I love Madam Mim Elephant. It's a very, very good card. Especially if you ramp it with Tipo, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Madam Mim Elephant's very, very good. Not only is it a 3/7, which is very, very large, but with it being able to take that damage and throw it onto other things, it's almost a steal card. It's very, very annoying to have to deal with. Whereas, for example, once I use steal as the example, is you can run into something and be like, oh, and then I deal 1 to it to finish taking it out. There's a lot of little things like that you can do with the Madam Mim Elephant to finish things off and kind of set yourself up for the start of your next turn. Because he has 7 health, it's very, very difficult to take it out. Also the 5th Spirit. So kind of the 1-2 punch that's very, very fun is you Madam Mim Elephant on 4, and then you follow it up with Elsa on 5. So when Elsa comes to play, you exert something between Elsa and Madam Mim Elephant. That's 5 attack coming at something. Once again, 7 health. Elsa, 5 health. That's a lot of health. So you can target whatever is in play you're worried about, tap it down, get it out of the way immediately. So if they have something in play that normally they never exert, like something like their Flynn Rider, for example, that they're just going to leave that ready the whole time, this will help take care of that issue. Once again, Lady Tremaine making another appearance. Very much getting away from the really, really wide boards when going against Ruby, so they feel a lot more confident able to run Tremaine again. With Bucky now being gone, they have more of a hand to kind of take their time to get their inkwell like they need to get it up to 6. And then the rest of the things are kind of similar, to be honest, from the previous sets. We got Friends on our Side, Be Prepared, your Queen's Castle. Reid was not running Library in this list. But overall, yeah, 2-hour game. Very, very good game. Alright, now we're into the top 4. This is the first Steel Psalm we got to see. So, Steel Psalm got a lot of new cards added to this set, to the point where if someone says they're running Steel Psalm, I could think of 5 different deck lists that they could be running. So very, very dangerous to play against a deck like that because you truly have no idea what they're going to have and not have. Are they going to run Flutes? Are they going to run Alan Adale? Are they going to be running multiple Prince Naveen's? Are they going to go roll aggro and run Piglet and Daisy? And so there's so many different options for this deck now as like a Swiss Army knife that it's very difficult to sit down and be like, oh, I bet they probably have that in their deck, when there's a good chance they don't. So Ryan here, it definitely went the tried and true of Cinderella as the 1-drop tool of the scene. Some decks have actually stepped away from that, as I saw recently with the tournament in Europe. Daisy Duck, only 2 copies of Daisy Duck. I'm not sure if that's because he was only able to get 2 copies of Daisy Duck, because like I said, this is not too far away from when Shimmering Skies has come out, or he simply think 2 was the magic number. I didn't get to talk to him about that. We have your Robin Hood Shift package. We have Low Drop Ursula, be able to sing songs that cost 4, which is something great because she can handle singing almost every song on the deck except Your Whole New World and Grab Your Sword. So she can sing along Game Zeus, which for some reason still people get shocked every time that happens. Another big ones is Pete. Same thing, like I mentioned before. That extra turn of knowing you can get away from a Be Prepared, or that extra turn of Grab Your Sword when you go really, really wide is really, really important. Prince Naveen, very, very good card. If you guys have not got to see Prince Naveen yet, he basically lets you get to play a song for free, and he has Senior 6. So not only is he great the second he comes into play, because he's going to play something like A Whole New World or Strength of Raging Fire, pretty much any song in your deck he's going to play for free. But then going forward, you don't have something that can quest for 2, you have something that can quest for 6, so he's going to sing every single song in your deck. He's just very, very dangerous, not only coming into play, but in going forward. Like, you can't let him stay on the field. He's very similar to that Ariel in the sense of that singer that is so big that they got out way earlier than they should have is a big deal. Rapunzel, so we can heal some stuff off, like your Smees, other stuff like Daisy Duck. Rapunzel healing Daisy Duck, everyone, is massive, is huge. That's, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why Daisy is now on this list, is because with that 4 health, just if you can't take her on one hit, you're not going to. It's going to be very, very difficult to come back. He's running Perdita in this list. I like Perdita a lot. It's very fun. Once again, it lends a lot of low drop characters. So you can they finally get rid of that Daisy Duck. Guess what? You just bring it back when Perdita quests. Bring back that Smee to be able to take something out. It definitely helps keep that pressure of a very wide board going. And then Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Always fun to see that come back. Once again, that's a perfect example of that's not in a lot of people's deck lists. So when someone all of a sudden shifts their Cinderella that they played on turn 1 out of nowhere on turn 5, yeah, it's very, very difficult to take care of once it's on the field. Be Our Guest. I thought that was very interesting to run Be Our Guest. Once again, I think we're now in this post-Bucky world where people have time and they have a hand, and the only true decks you have to worry about with board wipes is something like Be Prepared, when almost everything in your deck has 3 or more health in this deck. So something like Grab Your Sword, for example, doesn't necessarily board wipe you. So when you do something like Be Our Guest, you are essentially drawing a card. When you use that for Ariel, for example, you've seen the song, you're getting these other characters that you need, once again, to just keep putting that pressure of going wider and wider, and it becomes much more difficult to take care of. Your Bare Necessities is going to help get rid of your Be Prepared. That's the #1 target for that when you're playing against red. World's Greatest Criminal Mind, they're only one of. This one's an interesting one. And I didn't get to talk to him. I did talk to Holly. We'll talk about that in a minute. Another Steel Song player. World's Greatest Criminal Mind is an interesting card when you're not running the Queen package. So the Queen package allows you to give a character +4 attack, and you can choose to give that to one of your opponent's characters. So even if they have a 1 attack character, you can choose to give +4. Well, now it has 5 or more attack, and you can use World's Greatest Criminal Mind. When you're not using the Queen package, there's not very many targets that are consistent in decks that you can hit. Now, obviously, something like Tamatoa comes to mind, but like Mufasa, any of the singers in Steel Song are not going to be hit by this. So it's an interesting card for sure to run. And of course, it's always ink. So what do I know? They could just be inking it and saving it only specifically for like the Tamatoa for when it happens. But it's definitely an interesting card, I think, to run without the Queen package, because there's not that many targets in the game naturally that have 5 attack that you're usually worried about. And then you have all the standard songs that are pretty much every single Steel Song deck, and they're running almost 4 of every single one. Okay, next up we have Chad. So Chad, once again, like I said, Zycon on X and on Twitch. He is running Blurple. Man, this is a fun deck. I was very happy to get to play test with him in the week leading up to this event, because I ran Blurple in Chicago. I always seem to be just far enough behind. I'll have a really funny, crazy idea for a deck. I'm like, I think this could work. And then it fails, it loses horribly, and I never truly get to figure out the reason why it didn't work. And it could have been maybe because the cards didn't exist yet perfectly to make it the stars align. But this is like the 3rd time now that I've personally felt like, man, I was running that color, and like I couldn't get anything to work. I'm like, oh, I see now why it works with this. So I'm always the late. So maybe we'll find out. Robin Hood is not good this set. He'll be good next set, and I'll already be off of Robin Hood. But anyway, Blurple, very, very fun deck. This deck has so many different lines. It is I'll say this, is a very difficult deck to play. This is the kind of deck that I've always hoped Lorcana would be. And when I say that is, early in the game, so much with the Ruby Amethyst, there was a lot of, the game was not decided by really clever challenges in dealing with certain characters in play. It was just wipe the board. Just wipe the board. I'm going to wipe it with Be Prepared. I'm going to wipe it with the Grab Your Sword. And there is nothing clever about, like, I'm going to hit with this and now it's just 1 damage. I'm going to tap and do this. So you're kind of doing all these different lines of play. That's what this deck is. So this is the numbers crunchy math fan deck for sure. Because one raw move, one play out of order where you should have attacked with them before you quested because you could have done this. This is the embodiment of that headache. But it's a huge reward if you're able to pull it off. So, very, very unique, fun deck. So we have our Turn Box followers, we have Cogsworth. Very, very fun against Cogsworth. I got to see Chad do pretty much the greatest play I've ever seen, Lorcana, earlier in the week, where I was helping him test against the Amber Amethyst aggro. I turned 1 Daisy. He had a T-Bow on turn 2, so I was forced to basically play a bodyguard. I wasn't able to go super wide. I was like, okay, I'll play my bodyguard. I'll play my Donald Duck and quest for another one. So I'm tapped with a Daisy Duck and a Donald, and he has his T-Bow in play, and this is his. So he's 1 resource ahead, right? He has 4 resources on turn 3. Turn 3, he plays Crab, gives his T-Bow +3 attack. So now T-Bow is a 4/2. Then, with his 1 remaining resource, plays Cogsworth, giving his Crab Rush. So his Crab was able to swing into my Exerted Donald Duck, take him out, and keep going, because Donald Duck only has 2 attack. Then, T-Bow is a 4/2. T-Bow is able to then attack Daisy now that the bodyguard's out of the way, and also live and keep going, while Cogsworth's still in play. So, on turn 3, talk about a huge tempo swing of the aggro deck has nothing in play, and the Blurple deck has 3 characters in play. Very, very fun. Very, very crazy. And I'm sure he did stuff like that all weekend, because this whole deck, like I said, it lives off of the combos. It really uses the mana mims to the peak perfection of bringing things back to your hand to use them again. Kind of how it was when they first came out, where they were really used to just kind of set up another Tremaine or another Medusa to use them a second time. A lot of those type of gimmicks, which is really, really fun. So you're putting out your T-Bows and your Detective Mickeys to help ramp, to just do it just a little bit faster. So when you're playing against something like a Ruby Amethyst, you have a lot of the same similar purple package cards that they have in their deck, but you're able to do it 1 to 2 turns earlier because they had that ramp in the beginning while you were setting up a Chernobog or a Broom, for example. Another fun card they had was Bell. So similar to I mentioned earlier with why the Elephant is very, very fun, is that extra little bit of damage here and there really, really adds up. And when you're doing that min-maxing of, okay, if I attack that for 1 and this hits it for 2, I need 2 left to deal. When you're doing that type of math and you have something like Bell or the Elephant, that you don't have to keep constantly challenging every single thing. You can really set yourself up to do some fun combos if they are able to keep the damage on. We have Elsa, like we mentioned before, in the Ruby Amethyst list. Same thing, really teams up very well with the Elephant. Merlin, I think talking to Chad, he was not a huge fan of the Merlin, but it was definitely a really fun tech choice to try because he does have a lot of Merlin. So if it's the end of the game and you need that 1 card to win the game, I'm sure it got it for him right when he needed it. Elsa, Spirit of Winter, also very, very fun, making a comeback again. I haven't seen her since probably set 1, Ruby Amethyst. Not only does she have a great ability, but we finally get to use that shift that we've been wanting to use literally since we first saw this card. We're like, we can shift her? Oh, there's no good shift targets. Oh, but the shift target from set 4 is pretty good. Didn't cost 3 and get some. No, not good enough. This, on the other hand, where's she at? The other Elsa, the 5-drop, is very, very good. That is a perfect card to freaking shift right on top of. And then 1 Mufasa, man, some fun stuff I got to see him do with this as well. Mufasa, if anyone's not going to see this, it at least one of in almost every blue deck, especially if you're a ramp deck of some kind. The penalty of bringing back 2 cards is not a penalty. It's no different than what we thought a penalty of the mana mims being like, oh, I had to return a card in my hand, that sucks. So what? That's a good thing when you have ETBs. Same with Mufasa. Like, so wait a minute, I get to basically draw 2 cards that I put in my inkwell earlier in the game that I didn't really want to, and now I can get them back again. Very, very powerful. Um, to the point where I literally saw him more than one time hard cast, second star to the right. This card costs 10. That's insane. But if you're going to custom Mufasa and ready all your stuff anyway, you basically just got to draw 5 cards for free. Which, drawing 5 cards is good. Drawing 5 cards for free is even better. Similar new cards, Hideaway. Very, very good card. Highly recommend if anyone's not running this in their blue deck, because this will not only take out items, but also locations in a way that can't be dealt with. For example, when you ever, in the past 2 sets when we've seen the Lucky Dime decks and the Tamatoa kind of run rampant in the control decks, it was almost impossible to deal with once you got to the late game, because the second Lucky Dime exists and they have it, they're going to have it forever. Because with Tamatoa, they can quest and bring it right back. I destroy it. Okay, well, I'll quest and the next turn I'll bring it right back. So you couldn't even destroy it if you wanted to. It would always be gone. But with Hideaway, it puts it in your inkwell. So then they truly cannot get it back. Now, of course, they can get it back with maybe something like Mufasa, I guess. But with Hideaway, it truly goes away. It truly disappears. Even something as example as like a Queen's Castle. Not that Queen's Castle usually comes back, but for only 2 as a inkable card, that's far superior, not only cost-wise, but options-wise, as something like Rise of the Titans, which was only available in steel, and that was a complaint for a lot of people of, man, we have no freaking ways to deal with this in other colors. Another kind of branching out with the newer sets, more clever ways to how to handle other cards. Library, once again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those 1-2 punches of, hey, I know this character is going to die anyway, I might as well throw it in the library and draw a card. Like, basically just turns all your characters into pay 1, draw a card when they're banished. And as we saw in different, for example, Chicago, stuff like that, some of these new spicy decks that they were running where it was, everyone is revolved around, whenever my things die, I get to draw a card. If all your characters have that ability, that's a lot of draw power. And the more cards you draw, the better you are. So it's just that simple. Alright, our second place was another Blurple deck, a little bit different. This is Mike Saw, definitely known for MTG, doing a lot of online commander stuff like that, does card alters. If you're not familiar with Mike Saw, he also bought a Blurple, and they knew, him and Chad both knew they were playing Blurple, and I was very eager and excited for them to get to share deck lists and see what one's doing compared to the other, because they're quite different. There's a couple things that are the obvious that are the standouts, like you gotta have your Tipo and you gotta have your Mickey Mouse and your Madame Mim and your Merlin package, but a couple other little fun things that I noticed Mike had was Grandma Tala, Keeper Secrets. Once again, when you play this, it's an ETB effect, so when you're using something like Madame Mim and stuff like that to bounce things back, that's a pretty powerful ability to be able to get to do again later in the game. Same with Yzma. We have not seen this in, like I said, quite a long time, probably since set 2 when Ruby Amethyst was really utilizing the Madame Mims to bounce stuff back, to play it again later the next turn, to constantly keep things in check. And Yzma, once again, it's just another one of those powerful cards that does not rely on something like Tremaine and Medusa. First off, those are both inkable and they're red, but there's no circumstantial need of it has to have a certain attack, or they can only have one character in play. Yzma just hits anything, so it's a real quick threat. Yes, they get to draw 2 cards, but once again, when you have this level of control of tapping things down, and then you bounce her again to do it again, them keeping things off the field is very, very powerful. He's running Cusco, as we saw earlier, in a different list. Chad was not running that. Anna, this is a very fun card. I thought it was a little interesting that when he played this. But definitely it is the same scenario as using Elsa. To be able to tap things down is very, very powerful. So being able to keep them, whenever they play anything, they don't get that free turn of, all right, I'm going to play this and it's ready, so I'm safe for a turn, they can't challenge it. No, with Elsa, with Anna, with the Shift Elsa, they were locking things down the second it came into play, so nothing was ever safe. So you had something like your Tamatoa, your big Mufasa, your really big character, you're like, oh man, next turn when this goes off, I'm going to win. You don't get that turn. There is no safety net. Also something like Hades. Very fun again. Very similar to, like I said, the Medusas, the Tremaines, the idea of, I'm going to use this character to take one character out, and I can bounce it back to my hand late game and do it again. Just keep him basically on lockdown. And both of them very much were using the library and the castle. Definitely more so the library with Mike. And our winner of the event was Holly. Holly is definitely the Steel Song Queen. She's been playing it literally since set one. I remember set one, we were traveling to a show, or to an event in Lexington. There was like 3 or 4 of us all running Steel Song, and we were having a blast. We went to multiple events, and as time went on, we all kind of trying different decks and doing different things. And Holly was pretty consistent. I think she dabbled in Ruby Amethyst for a second there, but for the most part, she's definitely been on that Steel Song train and never left it. So she has a lot of experience, and similar to the Ruby Amethyst players, that consistency of been doing it since basically a whole year now. The game's been out, with just slight tweaks here and there. So a lot of experience. Congrats to Holly. She did very, very good, and was definitely made some fun, interesting choices once again. Because not only I know for a fact. The reason she wasn't running 4 daisies is simply because she didn't have 4 daisies. It was literally before the event, and certain people, and she had to get the cards in time, and she definitely made some tweaks to make that work. So with it's definitely only the first iteration of this deck, I would say, because I was talking to her about it as well, what she thought about World's Greatest Criminal Mind when she's not running the Queen package, and she was talking about some tweaks in there, and some different cards that she's running in hers, compared to what we saw earlier with Ryan, is she is running Alan Adale. I love Alan Adale so much. Not only am I, so back to the history of the Cerberus and to me personally is D&D and bards, and I love bards so much, and I'm a huge like folklore nerd and love my Robin Hood lore very, very much. And Alan Adale is basically the first bard in folklore and mythic, basically tales from a long time ago. So to get the bard, the Alan Adale with the very fun, famous song from the Robin Hood cartoon, and he's actually a good card, it made me so freaking happy. When they revealed this card, I was losing my mind. And some of us were super angry because they're like, that card's way too powerful. I don't think it's definitely ban worthy, but it is definitely very, very fun and has definitely put in the work. I would say he gets at least 5 lore a game, just by himself. So, which is really, really powerful, I feel, for a card that only costs you 4. So Alan Dale definitely putting in the work. You got your Pete's again, once again, kind of putting that time out on players to kind of slow them down for a second so you can get to do what you need to do. Dig a little deeper to get that whole new world, whatever it is you need to make sure to stop them before they can do something like Be Prepared. Prince Naveen, once again, he's MVP. He's a very, very good card, because not only when he comes into play you're getting that for free, but then you can't let him stay on the field either. So when you have stuff in play like Ariel, Alan Dale, Prince Naveen, and a Robin Hood in play, well, which one do you take out? It just makes it very, very difficult when they start to go wide, and when they have to second guess of whatever one they choose to take out, you go left, they go right. So it's very, very malleable of being able to just pivot whenever you need to. Bare Necessities 3, and then the rest of the kind of song package. Some people increase more. She's not running Grab Your Swords up. Thought that was very interesting. As I said before, the Amethyst, the Grab Your Swords doesn't really stop it. I don't know if anyone's got to play against this new version of aggro, but 3 health is kind of the smallest thing you have to deal with. Now, of course, there's the Lilos and Maleficents, but those get usually tacked out anyway. As long as they got their 2 lore, maybe 4, they did their job. But you can't anymore just grab your sword and in that deck and say, good game. It's definitely not the case. So she leaned into it. She's like, you know what, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to go really, really wide. She has 40 characters in this deck, which is a lot. And her mindset is, I will take care of what I need to if it happens. And I know she went against 1, if not 2 aggro decks in the day, so she had no problem taking those out either. So definitely made the right call. So that was our event that we had, the Din Challenge. Everyone had a lot of fun. Like I said, there toward the end, it was definitely a little sad. We're taking a lot of pictures, having a lot more fun because, like I said, our physical sort of the Cerberus, and that was literally our last day. I kind of timed it that way. We were kind of in the midst of figuring out what we want to do, and the big thing that was so consistent with Adriana and I with running the store is we miss being able to travel and go to shows again. We miss being able to play at other game stores and be able to be more part of the community than just our store itself. So, like I said, we very happy we're able to kind of make that choice and get to work from home again. So hopefully it's like you enjoy content like this, we'll be coming off a lot more like it, and you'll see us at a lot more shows and a lot more local events, and I'll be able to do more reports like this and kind of give everyone an update on not only our local meta here in the Cincinnati area, but I can do more reports on new fun spicy decks that we've been practicing and trying out, and then also give reports on the big events like the Lorcana challenges and nationals that just got announced, which is very, very exciting. So once again, I appreciate everyone watching. Hopefully you guys come back and stick around for more. We got a lot more content like this coming soon. And don't forget, at Cerberus, 3 heads are better than 1.